So, Peter, you've been looking up and you started back in the 1990s at Radio Leeds when Leeds won the First Division. How did you find that season? How did you get into it all together, man?
Well, that was a great learning time for me at BBC Radio Leeds. It was a really important part of my career. It was my first full-time job in broadcasting, and I was really lucky to be on that patch at a time when the sports news couldn't have been more alive and exciting. Yorkshire cricket was great to cover. I really enjoyed that. As a southerner, I learned a little bit about rugby league, and I used to love being around Halifax and Bradford and Huddersfield Town. But of course, the big event was Leeds winning the league under Howard Wilkinson, and that was a sort of formative year of my career. And it was great for a young reporter to be around that extraordinary story. And that Leeds team, which then went into the Champions League and had a famous tie against Stuttgart and then Rangers, and the team that won the league, you know, I can rattle off Lukic, Sterling, Dorigo, Batty, White, Fairclough, Strachan, McAllister, Speed, Chapman. You know, that was a terrific year. And I learned a lot from having to deal with Howard Wilkinson, who was a hard taskmaster of a coach and didn't always make life easy for young people in the media. You know, he wasn't necessarily media friendly, but that was good. That was all part of learning, and yeah, I shall never forget it.
Yeah, then you moved into broadcasting house in London, and one of your first matches there was the Everton versus Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough back in October 1997. How did you find that experience covering the Radio Leeds, then going on to like covering other teams like Everton and Sheffield Wednesday? How did you find that experience, Peter?
Well, what happened was I went to Broadcasting House at the start of 5 Live in the sort of early 1990s, around that time, and worked on the radio for whatever it was, 3 or 4 years. And that game at Hillsborough actually was my first game for Match of the Day, having been a radio commentator up till then. So that was an important day in my life, yes. I was very, very nervous. Those were the days when on Match of the Day there used to be 2 main games and a sort of third game. And John Motson and Barry Davis were always on those big games. And I think one of them must have been away. And there were 1 or 2 others around the edges too. But I got a rare and precious chance. Yeah, that was quite nerve-wracking, but obviously very exciting. It's an iconic programme. And at that age to have been part of it was fantastic.
Yeah, you've come to a number of World Cups as well, Peter. What's been your best game in the World Cup that you've actually covered?
Oh, well, I've been very lucky with the World Cups. I've done them all since 1998. I think in 2002, when Korea were beating Spain and Italy and doing crazy things on their home territory, that was a very exciting World Cup to be around, and the city of Seoul was partying, and that was a lot of fun. I think if you wanted a standout single game, apart from the finals I've done, the last 2 World Cups, the standout game would probably be the opening game of World Cup 2010, South Africa against Mexico, because of the meaning of that game to the start of a World Cup on African soil, all of the significance it had in human terms, the world coming together. On that day, at least, it felt racially united, and a memorable goal from a guy called Shabalala for South Africa, which was a very emotional, very, very emotional goal, and still puts the hairs up on the back of my neck.
Yeah, obviously when you do Premier League games for Premier League productions, you normally work with Jim Beglin. What's Jim like to work alongside when you're doing your commentaries?
He's an absolute joy to work alongside. He's a legend of Liverpool. I say that advisedly because he had a terrific career, which was sadly cut short by injury, but he did win a double back in 1986. As you know, he was part of Leeds United's promotion team as he tried to make a prolonged comeback. His playing career was cut short, but he's shown great humility and hard work, and he's really had to battle to make a new career in broadcasting. That he has successfully done for 2 or 3 decades now. He's a really humble, hard-working guy who turns up knowing what he needs to say, understanding what he needs to analyse, nailing the various tactical points, and he does it all with such charm. He's a really delightful guy to work alongside, a proper human being in my view.
Yeah, you've commented on some Champions League games. You did the second leg of the knockout stage between Real Madrid and Ajax at the Bernabeu in 2018-19, so last season. How did you find that experience, commentating at the Bernabeu with two of Europe's biggest clubs?
Well, I've been fortunate. I've been to the Bernabeu a few times, and that was just the latest of them. Actually, it's of all the great European venues that I've been fortunate enough to visit, that's my favourite, Real Madrid. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful ground right there in slap bang in the middle of Madrid. And it just goes up and up and up. I always describe it as a wedding cake. It's sort of tier after tier with white icing all the way to the top. Invariably, of course, you see the best players in the world there. And that game, like any game at Real Madrid, is a privilege. When you walk out into the stand there and take your seat, you think, wow, I'm a lucky boy.
Yeah, obviously you do the video game Pro Evolution Soccer alongside Jim Beglin as well. How did you manage to get into doing that, Peter?
Well, I got a call asking me to, actually. It's as simple as that. And that's good fun. That's a nice little sideline, something to be involved in. It's quite hard work, actually. A couple of weeks of sitting in a studio and shouting an awful lot of names and recording it. But that's neither here nor there. You'd expect it to be hard work. Yeah, it's good fun. It's very, very different. But I'm delighted to have that association.
Yes. Now, Peter, you obviously been a sports broadcaster. You've done quite a number of games. What sort of tips would you give to people wanting to get into the industry and into sports commentary?
Well, first of all, I would say be prepared to work really hard at it. Be prepared to understand that certainly at the very beginning, and frankly, it never stops, you're likely at various points to encounter rejection. It's a very, very competitive industry, and getting your foot in the door is a difficult thing to do, as many young people would tell you back when I started, and indeed right up until now. But if you work hard at it, if you really are determined to reach your end goal, then there's every reason to suppose you can. Try to be authentic, be yourself, don't pretend to be somebody else. Be yourself, have the courage to do that, but at the same time, have the humility to listen and learn and talk to anybody who can pass on little tips and information. Listen to yourself back, not out of vanity, but out of a need to hear your own faults and to improve. And never believe, if you ever do get to broadcast on sport, never believe that anybody is ever turning on the television or the radio for you. They're not. They're turning on the television because they want to hear and see the game.
Yes, so there's quite a number of things. I've actually done a few commentaries on YouTube, on one of my friends' YouTube channels, and me on YouTube channel watching commentaries for doing it via the PlayStation. Is YouTube something to go down if people want to get into commentary and get noticed?
Yeah, I absolutely believe it is. That one of the great things in the modern era is that there are so many different platforms, actually. Now, obviously, it's hard because there are so many platforms for yours to be the one that gets noticed, but at least there is a platform. There's a chance to put yourself out there, actually do it. You know, back in the day, we used to say just practice, practice, practice. And of course you could with no audience on your own, but there was nowhere actually to publish your work and offer the opportunity for others to see it. And YouTube, of course, is a great place for people to exhibit the talent that they have.
Yeah, and also you've on one of the World Cups. I just want to ask you about the 2018 World Cup final between France and Croatia. What did you think to that game? I thought it was a very good game. I thought good end-to-end game. Did you enjoy commentating on that game, Peter?
Yeah, I did. It was a crazy game. It's funny that if you're at the whole of a World Cup for 5-6 weeks, whatever it is, by the time you get to the final, actually, you're pretty exhausted yourself, and the whole thing becomes a bit of a blur. And it's a big effort to sort of summon the special energy that's required to work on the final itself. And so it's always, well, it's a good thing when the final turns out to be a really engrossing game with a lot of goals and so on. What I remember, funnily enough, most about that final was the downpour towards the end of the game, the rain that came lashing down, which held up the trophy ceremony for ages while all the VIPs and so on had to come down and find umbrellas and all of that sort of thing. It was a slightly crazy madcap end to the World Cup because of the weather.
Yes, I actually remember that from when I watched it over weather coming down, having to go back into studio on either BBC and ITV. Where I can't remember which one I was watching on over here now, and had to go back into studio for quite a bit and do a bit more analysis before the trophy presentation was ready to be done.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Just one final one, Peter, before I let you go. Which out of the Bundesliga games you've covered this so far, which have you found it hard to do it without a co-commentator alongside you? Have you been nervous doing it on your own?
Well, not so much nervous, and actually over the years I've done quite a lot of commentary without a co-commentator. I prefer to have someone to work with and to bounce off. That in itself isn't a problem. The oddity is working on games without atmosphere, but that is something that we're going to have to get used to over the coming weeks and months. A commentator normally surfs the wave of crowd noise. Without that crowd noise, it's hard sometimes to judge exactly how to pitch it in terms of your own levels of noise and excitement. But gradually, I think I and fellow commentators are working out a way to do it, and probably will have perfected it just in time for the crowds to come back, and then we'll have to remember how to deal with crowds again. But no, it's been a little bit strange. But I have to be honest, it's been lovely to be involved and just back in the saddle and working again.
Yes, obviously I saw over the weekend for the last Saturday's games, some of the games on BT, they had artificial crowd noise behind, which I think something which is the Premier League looking forward might be trying to do on Sky and BT over here in the UK. Do you think the broadcasters that you work with, like Premier League Productions, may do something similar to help the commentators?
Yeah, I think there will be, not to help the commentators particularly, but to enable supporters watching at home to have the choice of crowd noise. I think there is going to be an option to have crowd noise or not crowd noise, depending on whether you press the red button or whatever it may be. And I think that's a good thing. My own view is that if fans and clubs want that at their club, they should be enabled to do it. Whether the television company should dictate whether crowd noise is pumped into the grounds, I'm not so sure. But I must say it's worked pretty well when I've heard it over the last few weeks, and I can see why people would appreciate having it there.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time this morning, Peter. Really enjoyed doing this with you this morning. Thanks for your time. And before I do let you go, just want to say, before all the Leeds fans, thanks for doing that message when Norman Hunter died via Jim Beglin. We all saw that. I downloaded the video onto my phone from Twitter, from Jim's Twitter, cut the bit up and put it on one of the Leeds United Facebook pages I own on Facebook, and with quite a few likes, and everyone, they were praising how well you spoke about him. So I just want to say thank you for doing that as well, Peter.
Well, Russ, I'm glad you brought that up, just because speaking to a Leeds United fan, when I think of my time working in Leeds and when I think of Leeds United, I think of Norman Hunter. And his passing was really, really sad at the start of a very sad time in the history of our country and the world. He was the gentlest, loveliest, kindest. He was such a generous man to work with. And given his hard man image, those who've never met him wouldn't believe what sort of a chap he was, because I know you wouldn't want to argue with him on a football field back in the day, but I can tell you he was the most pleasant, easygoing guy you could ever think of, and I was so sad when we lost him. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for your time this morning as well. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, then Peter, I'll keep in touch over LinkedIn over the next few weeks as well, and I'll keep listening out for your commentaries on BT and that over the next few days and weeks as well. for the coverage.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you.